Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 9 of my 31 horror movies in October series, Halloween series. It's hard to believe we're already a third of the way through the month almost. And today, though, for day 9, we'll be taking a look at a more recent haunted house movie, and that, of course, is James Wan's The Conjuring from 2013. I have it on Blu-ray here, directed by James Wan from 2013. So let's just go ahead and get into the setup, premise, and cast, and then I'll give you my thoughts and review as normal. And I'm going to try to avoid spoilers as normal, as part of this series anyway. So, The Conjuring is a 2013 American supernatural horror film directed by James Wan and written by Chad Hayes and Carrie Hayes. It is an it is the inaugural film in the Conjuring universe franchise. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga star as Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of haunting. Their their perpetrated real life reports inspired the Amityville horror story and film franchise. The Warrens come to the assistance of the Perron family, who experienced increasingly disturbing events in their farmhouse in Rhode Island in 1971. So basically, in 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perrin move into a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, with their 5 daughters: Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April. Their dog Sadie refuses to enter the house. They discover the entrance to a cellar, which has been boarded up. Paranormal events occur within the first few nights. Every clock in the house stops at 3:07 a.m. Birds fly into their windows. Sadie is found dead in the morning, and Caroline wakes up with huge bruises. One night, Christine encounters a malevolent spirit. Another night, Carolyn hears clapping in the hallway and becomes trapped in the basement. Andrea and Cindy are attacked in their bedroom by a spirit believed to be the same one Christine had encountered. Carolyn contacts demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren, who have recently investigated a possessed doll called Annabelle. The Warrens agree to take the case and conduct an initial investigation, during which Lorraine, a clairvoyant, sees the dark forces have latched on to the Perron family, and leaving the house will not free them. To gather evidence, they place cameras, recorders, and bells around the house with the help of their assistant Drew Thomas and police officer Brad Hamilton. Further research reveals that the house once belonged to an accused witch named Bathsheba Sherman, a relative of Marytown Eastie, who sacrificed her week-old baby to the devil and killed herself in 1863 at 3:07 a.m. in the morning after cursing all that who take her land. They find reports of numerous murders and suicides throughout the years in the house that was built on the property. Excuse me. So that's basically the setup and the story of the movie that we get into cast wise. We have Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren, Lily Taylor as Perrin, Ron Livingston as Roger Perrin, Stanley Caswell as Andrea Perrin, Shanley Caswell, sorry, Haley McFarland as Nancy Perrin, and Joey King as Christine Perrin. There's more to the cast than that, but those are sort of the only ones I could fit on the sheet here in my notes. So those are the main ones. So yeah, that's 2013's The Conjuring in a nutshell as far as cast and premise goes. This is a fantastic movie to watch for Halloween during the month of October, as well as a fantastic haunted house movie of recent times. There's not a lot of great haunted house movies in the last 15 years, in my opinion. Like The Others was there in 2001, and since then it's kind of been hit or miss. But this was really a top-notch one here of recent memory, in my opinion. So we're just going to go ahead and get into the pros and why this movie's so good, in my opinion, and then a couple of cons, which are more personal and not kind of hard to come up with, to be honest with you. You got to start with James Wan. I mean, he had a vision for this movie, that absolutely fantastic directing job that he followed through on. His level of detail in the process with the scares are on point in every aspect of this movie. Very effective. Yeah, he had an amazing vision of what he wanted this movie to be, what he thought it should be, and not only did he have a great vision, he delivered on that vision. And yeah, I just can't speak highly enough of James Wan's directing in this movie. Then you get into the awesome visuals and camera work throughout the movie. Just great cinematography that really brings this haunted house story to life with what they do with the camera and the movements and everything throughout the movie. Um, Obviously, we have great performances and likable characters across the board, really. Specifically, though, you got to talk about Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine. They're really the characters that, as an audience, we see this movie through. We see it through their eyes. They're very well developed characters. The family is also well acted and likable, especially the parents. Ron Livingston as Roger and Lily Taylor as Carolyn. And even the kids of the family, the girls, I don't think they held the film back. I mean, not everything was perfect with them, but as far as kids go, I thought they did a pretty decent job, a pretty realistic job of their performances. Um, yeah, just really good performances across the board, as well as likable characters, which we don't often get in a horror movie. Likable and developed characters that have a little bit of backstory to them. So we have more to go on than just them, the fact that they're human beings waiting to get killed, kind of thing that we get in a lot of horror movies. The overall tone and vibe of this movie is very effective, and it's scary when it needs to be. Nothing cheap. There's no cheap jump scares here, but everything has a purpose. The movie's very well paced. It's kind of a slower burn horror movie, as a lot of haunted house movies are. Um, but I don't mind that at all. It's not wall to wall scares, but they're effective at building tension and suspense. That's the biggest thing that this movie does, and James Wan does masterfully, is building suspense, building tension. And then we get great payoffs when we do get the scares as well. Like I said, nothing cheap, everything's earned, everything has a purpose, top notch. I love the setting, both of the house inside and outside. Very creepy haunted house inside, as well as the area outside. Of course, the famous Conjuring tree that we always see. I don't have it on my DVD cover, but the tree of the hanging ghost. That everybody remembers that scene, I think. Excuse me. Yeah, it's just very eerie and creepy. Feels very traditional haunted house kind of movie in a more modern time, but it's really well executed. Even though we've seen haunted house movies throughout the years, they're not all well executed. This one is exceptionally well executed, in my opinion. Just a very well produced movie as well, as far as everything that's seen from the inside of the house to the outside of the house. They really spared nothing there. It's a very fun and enjoyable watch with good creepy moments and scares that don't rely on kills, gore, a lot of cursing even in the movie, or a lot of blood. There's a little bit of blood towards the end, but not it's not a gore fest. I mean, if you're somebody that's your idea of horror movies gore fest, then this movie ain't gonna be your thing, man. But for somebody like me, that I don't gore doesn't offend me or bother me that much, but I'm much more creeped out by a psychological or haunted house kind of movie myself. And this is a great one. I think the creepiest scene in the movie, there's a lot of creepy scenes, but it's actually the one where the Warren's daughter ends up getting locked in the basement of their own house, having nothing to do with the house of the family. When you got Annabelle sitting on top of the demon Bathsheba on top of her lap, and then the doll Annabelle creepily turns her head towards the child. It's just so effectively frightening, especially if you watch this with the lights off. Yeah, just I just can't say enough. But there's obviously other great scenes too. The one where the we get the ghost hanging from the tree there that only Lorraine Warren can see, being a clairvoyant like she is. The scene in the basement, obviously at the end with the exorcism, is very creepy. Every time they go in the basement, they're exploring the basement. You're just waiting for something to jump out, and that's part of the brilliance of James Wan, is that we don't get those cheap jump scares, things jumping out. Everything is earned, and yeah, I know I've beaten this point to a pulp, but it needs to be said. And then my final pro would have to be the fact that it really has a lot of great effects in the movie as it relates to the house and everything around it. Doesn't overly rely on CGI. There's very little CGI, and it's not necessarily bad CGI. More practical and smart effects that make this haunted house movie, much more effective, in my opinion. So Yeah, if that's not enough pros for you, I could list another four or five, but I'm gonna go with those for now. As far as the couple of cons that I have for this movie, it is kind of a slow burn movie, which for like I said, for me that's not a problem. I actually like a good slow burn movie with character development and kind of story development. But it doesn't have wall to wall scare. So if you're sitting down to watch a movie that's just gonna creep you the hell out the whole time, the whole 90 plus minutes of it, this probably won't be your movie. So that's more of a might not work for everyone kind of con, but it's not a con for me. There are some haunted house tropes that they use, kind of cliche kind of stuff, even though it's done effectively, as I've said, but stuff that we've seen before in other sort of haunted house movies, like with the creaking chair and the creaky rocking chair, and just the light and the shadow and the door slamming and things like that. But like I said, none of it's wasted. It all has a purpose. One thing I'll say is I think they could have afforded a death or two at least at the end of this movie. They could have had one of the side characters, like the cop character who does get bit by Carolyn Perrin as she's possessed. He does get bit on the neck, but there are no deaths in this movie really. And well, that's not necessarily critical to making it a great movie. I do think it would have raised the stakes and the tension a little bit more, especially at the end of this movie. It would have raised the stakes a little to the evil of this movie, the fact that it is life threatening. But again, that's a small nitpick. That was just something I thought of at the end of the movie that nobody really gets killed in this movie, and that's okay. Again, it doesn't take anything away from the great haunting movie that it is. But I got to give this movie a nine out of 10. The Conjuring from 2013, the original Conjuring. 9 out of 10 for this movie. Just a great haunted house movie, great Halloween October movie. Go ahead and comment down below, guys, what you thought of The Conjuring from 2013. Give me your thoughts, pros and cons as you see them. Like this video, hit the little notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for this 31 series, as well as after that. Subscribe to my channel to see all my horror content through the rest of this month as well as future months. Thank you for watching this video and stay scared. Bye.